Episode number 4 of the I talk about the tank changes. This is probably gonna be a 5 too, I'd imagine, because this video is gonna be me talking about the fact that the pre-patch is live and they are not there. This is a video because a lot of people have asked me about this today. I streamed for like 4.5 hours, and this was probably asked like maybe up to 50 sometimes today. I get it, everybody wants to know about it, but I think there's more to talk about, like the fact that they're not there, than the just answering the question. So it's hard for me to do that when I'm streaming doing a key. So I want to make this video. It's going to be like kind of like a weird rant on the fact that it's not there. This is just who I am. Sorry if it seems like I'm over explaining a very basic situation again, but yeah, anyway, TLDR, they're massively nerfing tanks and their ability to self-sustain and survive in general. But on the pre-patch, for some reason, all gear has improved its stats. And the biggest, from what I can tell, the biggest improvement on the stats is stamina and armor. Blood DK drinks this shit up. Like, they love more stamina and armor. It obviously helps every tank, but it's going to end up theoretically helping Blood the most because their survival is based on them not getting, a lot from their passive mitigation. Now they have so much passive mitigation that they basically are gods, like straight up. Like, I can't imagine actually dying. Like, it's going to be hard to die with 2 cheat deaths and that, right? So anyway, yeah, they did not implement the rest of the changes. This means pretty much everything that got announced last week did not get changed. Now, I don't think there's really any buffs, but the one thing that we talked about last week that is in the pre-patch is the fact that Bone Storm does snap off CD on Dancing Rune Weapon, which is like 50 seconds removed every time you use a full Bone Storm. It is 50, and that is ridiculously good. Probably the biggest change, I'd imagine the biggest change any tank received, because now that is effectively giving you, potentially 50% more uptime on Dancing Rune Weapon. And on top of that, the changes that they're making to Dancing Rune Weapon's duration have not happened yet. So we're basically in this weird interstitial space here where we are broken as fuck. Like, probably all tanks are as broken as they could ever possibly be. And I don't know why this is the case. So, little tinfoil hat here, it may be the case because they are trying to get data on how bad it can get before they have to make a change. Like, it's very possible to look at these decisions and be like, wow, they needed to do this, right? Now that you see how the class changes were going to break the tanks in general, like to the point now where, yeah, like you think it was bad before, it's way, way better now. Yeah, now it's almost like it's hard to not side with them on this. It's hard to look at tanks and be like, yeah, okay, now it's out of control. And I don't know that they would do something like that on purpose to kind of like run a social experiment, but yeah, I guess it's a possibility. Realistically, the real reason that it's not in the game is because it's not finished. Like, they are not prepared to do it. So they didn't do it with the pre-patch. The reason, this is a conversation at all, though, is because last week when it got announced, it was like in the middle of my streams. People were saying that it was testable on both the PTR and the beta. Now, I have a lot of trouble believing people when they say things anymore on the internet because there's a lot of jargon that's used. You've heard me talk about this a lot. Some guy, like, we use this term cracked, right? When somebody says cracked, people use it both positively and negatively. It's like, it doesn't make sense, bro. Can we just use actual English to describe these situations? It confuses me. I feel like old and invalidated. I don't like the feeling, so I just avoid it. And this is the same situation I think we have here, because I think people are colloquially calling the beta PTR and PTR beta. I do it all the time by accident, but I think people are doing it more than by accident. Like, I think people are doing it just colloquially, like just saying anything that's not live game is the beta or is the PTR. And this confuses the conversations that you try to have about these two because they are very separate. I don't know that people also realize that they are very separate. Like, the PTR was the pre-patch only, and the beta is not the pre-patch. Like, everything that's in the pre-patch is also in the live game for Dragonflight, or for the War Within, I guess. But you cannot test pre-patch specific states. You cannot do Dragonflight Mythic Plus, for example, on the beta for the War Within. Like, it's a different environment. So they are different. So multiple people confirmed to me, quote unquote, or basically just lied to me. I don't know, one way or the other. They told me that it was on the PTR. I don't know if anybody has any additional supplementary evidence on this that they want to say more definitively whether it was or wasn't. But regardless, it should have been, and it may have been, and now it's not. And the reason it should have been is because every other PTR and pre-patch cycle I've ever been through is basically everything from the class changes of the beta into the pre-patch, okay? Because this is here to get you acclimated to the changes. Like all the talent changes happened, right? And those talent changes now equate to a much stronger Blood Death Knight and probably every spec in the game, other than Havoc Demon Hunter apparently. But yeah, the overall assessment of the talent changes are not done yet, because they made talent changes that are nerfs on top of the buffs they already did that are meant to balance the spec, right? And those have not happened yet. So this is a very weird, like I said, like an interstitial space here where we are almost getting a patch that is now we know is not finished, but it's live anyway. And why is this happening? Ironically, we were talking about this Microsoft bullshit. I don't buy it at all. I don't feel like these companies have any actual like bearing on what the game is and what it isn't. But you know, it's hard to, regardless of who's in charge of these things, it's hard to not notice that Blizzard is basically trying to force out an expansion as soon as possible. And I don't know why they would do that. I think Dragonflight's amazing. I do not think season 4, you know, it's stale, yes, but it's not long. Like it's not been long at all. It's not even, I don't even think it's been, it's not even going to come close to 20 weeks, right? And these dungeons are great. I'm not in a rush to have them be gone. So why did we get the pre-patch? And we don't even have, like, there's nothing in the pre-patch. We got warbands that had to be disabled. The banks don't work. There's like a 3-part quest to go do, and that's it. No content at all first week. Like, what's, just wait one more week. I don't really get why they're doing it. You know me, if you know me, especially any haters of me, know that I am usually very pro Blizzard. I will take their side on pretty much everything that I don't understand, because I assume they understand it. Like you have to assume this. You're very like ego driven if you don't think if you think you know more about their game than they do. This is just silly. It's really just not an intelligent position to take, and I may take this too far. But this one, it's like I gotta be on the side of the haters here. Like I can't. It doesn't make any sense to make these changes this close to launch, this close to pre-patch, and then not have them in the pre-patch ready to be tested. Like we talked about this last week, right? Like they had a good situation here because the changes are bad, but if you give people the time to adjust to them when they're doing content they're already familiar with, they won't be looked at as this bad. They had a slam dunk, like a alley-oop was thrown to them and it just bounced off the backboard here. This is a big mistake, and I don't know why it's happened. But the other thing I'm thinking of is the why it's happened is because they're actually not going to go through with them. Like they were live for a full week. Everything that's on the beta, usually 1 week is all it needs to be tested before some iteration occurs, right? So for them to not put them into the pre-patch tells you that there's going to be another iteration of it. And that new iteration hasn't been published to the beta yet. So it may be we're undoing all of these, right? It could be that. It could not be that, yes. But I do think like it would be like, okay, well, whatever the new iteration is not going to be ready for launch. And the old iteration is invalid. So we're not going to use that one at all. So that's not going to be there in the pre-patch. But yeah, this will, from what I can tell, be the first time we ever have major class changes that will come with the launch of the expansion. I have no idea when it's going to happen. Maybe there's just going to be another patch next week, and that's going to implement them. I guess they've done some stuff like that before, but they shouldn't. And I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. All I know is I gained like 75 score today. Keys are just a joke. Like keys are like 2 levels easier at least. I mean, I might go as far to say 3, maybe 4. I haven't even done all the dungeons yet, but like we just walk through them now. You pretty much don't take physical damage. I did like the math on it. The whole thing I did in the last video, I'm still reducing like 75 or 95% of the damage I take with self-healing, basically, like that thing we did in the last video on this. You know, and Blood Shield is now like 40 to 50% of my overall. And that's just because I'm never low enough that I need to Death Strike. Like Umbilicus and Blood Shield are above Death Strike because you don't take damage. So they just are the first line of defense now. You know what I mean? You could probably take Blood Shield or Death Strike off your bars. Well, that doesn't make sense because you got to be able to get Blood Shield. But you can take the healing from Death Strike off your bars and you'd probably not even notice it. That's how easy mode it is to tank. The same keys I did 2 weeks ago, well, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, but you get it. The last time Fortified came around and I tanked them, they were hard, and now they're way, way easier. And I think this is probably universally true for all tanks, and I think it's a bigger, like the bigger reason for it is the armor and the stamina changes. Like did I explain that already? They basically made gear changes that don't really, like I don't know why they did them. It doesn't really make any sense. It just basically buffed everybody. By the way, a side effect of this is that Gear's gold cost is a summary of its average stats. So basically, like an item level 100 piece should sell for more than an item level 40 piece. But because item level has always uniformly been related to the actual stats, that's how they measure it. So it's not just based on item level, because there's item level, like items from Classic that don't actually have any stats on them, but are still a certain item level now. So it's just based on the actual cumulative stats. Anyway, so what somebody showed me was they have a cloak from Karazhan, the raid, and it was, or maybe it was the 5-man, I don't know which one, but either way, 30 gold vendor, now it's 50 gold. So basically every item in the game is now vendoring for far more. I'm going to tell you straight up, this is probably a bug and it's probably not going to stay in the game for very long. So, that phrase people say all the time, exploit early, exploit often. Yeah, I mean, you would be in great, like they're not going to take your gold off you. Obviously there's better gold farms in the game than going and farming transmog, but this is a really fun thing to do anyway. So maybe go do it. I honestly probably will, even though I know it's probably not, very ethical to do it, but regardless, just some things in my head about this. Let me know what you guys think about the lack of the tank changes. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to make this video because it's the most common question. I got like 50 questions on this today, and I just wanted to be able to give my thoughts more succinctly because it's more than just, no, it's not on there. There's a reason it's not on here, and there's implications for it not being on there. So those are important to understand in the context as well. But yeah, as of right now, keys are incredibly easy comparatively, and Blood DK is a monster, like totally unkillable. But I assume all 6 tanks are like that. So let me know what you guys think about this. Stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow with more streaming.